the use of a lifting body, an aircraft with no conventional wings. Only its fuselage would keep the aircraft airborne and guide it safely back to Earth.
At that time, they were looking at having jet engines on the shuttle for landing and for transporting it across the country.
They were known as the flying bathtubs. For the first test, the M2F1 was towed behind a car, a souped-up Pontiac. Whitey Whitesides drove that Pontiac across the lake bed at about 120 miles per hour, dragging this flying bathtub behind it.
As well as groundbreaking, their tests could also prove ground shaking. September 1976. More than 4.5 years after President Nixon signed off on its development, America's new spacecraft, Constitution, gets its first close-up before the cameras. The orbiter itself was well received by the public, but impassioned fans of a particular long-canceled television series called Star Trek wanted it called something else. They staged a successful write-in campaign, and the orbiter was renamed for the Starship featured on the show. Thus, NASA's new shuttle would be the Enterprise, boldly going as no spacecraft had ever gone before. Whatever its name, this bird still needed to prove it could fly. In an age before computer simulations, balsa wood models and wind tunnel testing was the only means to test the airliner-sized glider.
We put together a very aggressive flight test profile that consisted of data points continuously all the way down. There was not a matter of 10 seconds went by without another, either a pitch doublet or a rudder kick or an angle of attack sweep. The things that really turn on a test pilot to fly them as accurately as possible.
August 12, 1977. On a crystal clear California morning, high above the Mojave Desert, 2 NASA test pilots ready for Enterprise's first flight. The plan was for Fred Hayes, Jr. and Gordon Fullerton to lift the orbiter off a modified 747, then land on a dry lake bed 15,000 feet below. Columbia, NASA's first orbiter, is fittingly named after the first American vessel to circumnavigate the globe. While the new class of NASA astronauts trained for subsequent shuttle flights, Columbia was undergoing preparations for the program's maiden voyage, STS-1. Veteran astronaut John Young, one of the 12 men to set foot on the moon, is in command. His pilot is first-time flyer Bob Crippen. Together they would travel over 1 million miles and circle the Earth 36 times.
John used to say, "Script A, they're getting ready to light off 7 million pounds of thrust under you, and you're a little bit excited. You don't know what's going on." But both John and I knew what was going on.
Launched like a rocket 2 days earlier, Columbia lands as a glider on the dry lake bed of Edwards Air Force Base in California.
We do a big turnaround to land on the lake bed for that first flight. And I remember when John went into a bank, a big left bank, I looked down at the lake bed, and there's thousands of people out there. And John, look at all those folks, which had come out to see us later.
Anyone who was associated with the program or there just to see the shuttle return, I think felt a lot of pride in our country and our space program. And so those emotions emotions were, finally released, and you said, wow, the flight was done safely, they're back home. The shuttle really does work. It's a great program. It's got a great future ahead.
Liftoff of the Challenger Columbia, turning her.
Well, bring in the shuttle has three landers.
For more than 30 years, the fleet and thousands of Americans dedicated to its safety and success have toiled in exhilarating triumph, heartbreaking tragedy, and most often, quiet obscurity. Their contributions have extended beyond the bounds of space. Among others, shuttle-derived technologies have been used in developing an artificial heart and limbs, three-dimensional biotechnology, a light for treating tumors in children, and improving crime prevention and wildfire detection. From crawler driver to payload specialist, from scuba diver to pilot, from scientist to engineer, they and many like them throughout the nation share a commitment to sending humankind safely into space. That dedication, as much as any other acclaim, will be the legacy of America's space shuttle.
I think will be remembered in thousands of years, as perhaps the most incredible technological feat of humans of our time.
As is the order of life, an ending for the space shuttle becomes a beginning for a space-bound successor. Soon, America will again send astronauts into orbit and beyond to do what NASA does best: explore.
All right. When we give these talks, our administrator has asked us to consider, why should we explore space? What is the reason for even going there? And first and foremost is because it's in our nature to explore. We want to learn about our solar system. We now know that the moon is not made of cheese. And we know that there are no little green men on Mars. Also, there's unparalleled advancements in science and technology. Computers, everything. Fourth is satellites. We've got GPS, that's probably number one. Well, number two. TV would be number one. So without going to space, you wouldn't have those two major items there. And finally, it's vital to our national interest. World War I was, they dabbled in air power, but in World War II it was evident you had to have control of the airspace. Well, in the next great war, hopefully there won't be one, you're going to have to control space itself. So, what is it that I do? Of course, I have the distinct privilege of working for NASA at the George C. Marshall Space Flight Center. Even though I'm a physicist, I'm classified as an electronics engineer. And I work in the avionics design department, and my specialty is flight sensitive. So, if I was to describe my job in one sentence, this is what it would be. I take a physical or chemical stimulus and convert it to an electrical signal, which then can be interpreted by a computer. And so, why are sensors interesting? Well, number one, everything out there has a sensor on it. So you're involved in multiple programs, multiple projects. And then two, sensors provide real-time feedback to whatever the present conditions are. Okay, now I'm going to go through avionics versus astronautics. Avionics is a portmanteau. Anybody know what that word means? Well, I'll tell you what it means because I had to look it up. It means a combination of two different words, two or more different words. So avionics is a portmanteau of aviation and electronics. And it's the application of electronics to both aviation and astronautics, which is aerospace. Now, astronautics is also a portmanteau. It's a portmanteau of astro and electronics. So this is the application of electronic systems to astronautics, which is used in satellites and manned spacecraft